You're going to do it. Sorry, we had a miscommunication there. We had an announcement that needs to be made. This is announcements for the ladies who are bringing food for the Ronald McDonald House on Thursday. Please have your food at the kitchen here between 4 and 4:30 on Thursday. If you have any questions, you can see Helen Cannon.
Thank you, brother. All right. Dennis, I'll let you know whenever we need to mute that, and I'll let those watching online know as well. So we're good for now. When we get to that one part of the presentation, I'll let you know. So tonight, I want to share with you something that has been on my heart for probably, I want to guess about a solid 15 years now. And a project that has been 10 years in the making. Whenever I was in Bible school in Austin, Texas, I remember going to visit a brother that we had known for many years, and he was a preacher at a congregation that was dying, and he's very evangelistic. And I remember him saying something that stuck with me to this day. He says, "Troy, you know, the church is really good about evangelizing, about spreading the gospel, about getting people into the front doors, and then, you know, teaching them the gospel, and then they obeying the gospel. But the big problem I'm seeing is we have a real problem with the back door. We have a lot of people who come in, are saved, but then they wind up drifting away, and the next thing you know, they're slipping out the back door," as he called it. And there was just something about that stuck with me. And then whenever I got to Paraguay, I noticed that problem, that same problem that, in fact, when I first got there, the team that was there before me had told me they had baptized over 120 some odd people. And I'm looking around going, where are they? And they had fallen away. In my own experience with people I've preached the gospel to and taught the gospel, I've had people that began to fall away or had fallen away or left the church altogether, and it hurts my heart to see that happen. So in Paraguay, I wrote a book, and it's called First Principles of the Oracles of God, in Spanish, Principios Elementales. And I wrote this book, and it's a workbook, and the whole purpose was to guide people through the fundamentals of the faith. So as soon as somebody was baptized, I'd say, hey, let's sit down, we're going to study. And we would go through this book, and I would explain all kinds of things about their responsibility. Because one of the things that I saw in fundamentals books, there's a lot of books about Christian fundamentals. There's a lot of books about new convert classes. But every single one of them, and no, they're all good books. There's nothing wrong with them. But the thing that I noticed that was lacking is none of them addressed, what about me? What about my personal responsibility as a Christian? Because they would immediately start talking about the church, they'd start talking about the Bible and everything else, which is all important stuff, but I'm a firm believer that the person, the individual, needs to know, okay, what about me? So that's where the project came from. Well, then when I got back to the United States, I had a lot of people say, hey, that is a great book that you wrote. Do you have it in English? Believe it or not, I wrote it in Spanish. Did not write it in English and translate it to Spanish. And I thought, I don't have it in English. And believe it or not, it's harder to translate back into English than it was writing it in the first place. And so over the course of the last 10 years, by writing articles here at Margaret Street, using it in various ways, had an opportunity to talk to Rudy Kane with World Video Bible School and say, I've got an idea. This was several years ago, and here's what I like to do. And so the whole point of this entire thing is the question that people have, what must I do after I obey the gospel? Because as my preacher friend said, we're good at getting them in the water, but then a lot of times they're left on their own. And it's so important. That's a very important time. And you'll see why more as I explain as we go forward. Because in Matthew chapter 4, we see in Mark chapter 1 that immediately the Spirit led Jesus out into the wilderness after his baptism. And in that wilderness time, Satan came and attacked him in all three areas of life. And in every single time, in those verses that are quoted there, Jesus responded with, "It is written." And that's where this whole idea came from. It's like, I need to help people understand more about what is written. And this is a crucial time in their lives, these first 40 days as a Christian, just as it was for Jesus. If it was important for Jesus, should it not be important for us? And so the idea was born, going to World Video Bible School, going there, and they have these outstanding facilities, and I'll tell you more about that in just a second. As I went there, this was born. Your first 40 days in the wilderness. A project that is about first principles for new Christians. Now, while I was there recording that, I'll just back up to these pictures real quick. While I was recording this, and I'm going to show you more about that in just a second, Rudy Kane, who runs that, offered me a job. He wants me to come work for World Video Bible School. And I said, no, I'm very happy at Margaret Street. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. But I'm going to stay where I am at Margaret Street. Is that good? Did I make the right decision? Okay, woo! Making sure. Some of y'all were like, man, why did he go? But he did ask me if I would come and I would make some more projects for him, as well as teach in the school. They record lessons. They have 150,000 students worldwide. And so I've been going out there. The elders have graciously allowed me to do at least one to see how it goes. And so I've gone out there now and recorded one segment. I'm going and again in a few weeks to finish up that of the book of Psalms. And so the book of Psalms, the course notes, the commentary that I had to write for it, as well as all those videos, will be going out to 150 students worldwide and will be available for the next however many years. The last batch that they had lasted over 30 years, and so this is going to reach many, many souls. And so I want to say thank you to the elders of this congregation. I want to say thank you to this congregation because it is partly because of your goodwill offering that I'm able to do the things that I do. And I thought it was important to share these things with you because you heard me talk about it. You've heard me mention a few things, but I wanted you to be able to put your eyes on some of the things that I'm doing and some of the impact that you're having through this effort. And while I was there, I also recorded another project that will be coming out next year about once saved, always saved. And this is just a scene there of one of the young men that also works there in the scene where we were doing the recording, so you can just see a little bit about it. But what I want to introduce you to tonight is this first 40 days in the wilderness. If you go to the website, it is now a dedicated website called walkinginthetruth.com. And if you go there, this is what you're going to see, and you have their options. So the whole point of this is when someone is baptized, you can give them a book, you can give them a video, you can give them a QR code, or website address. Go to the website, and they will be able to go through this series. And so there is a video series. I'll explain more about what that is in just a second. There's a book, as you see right here. There is also audio, and then they can even submit questions. And so the book, for example, if you want a physical copy, just read it. What it is you can go on there, click on it, you can download the book for free. Everything is free. One of my stipulations is that we're not charging for this. We want the brotherhood. We want the world to have this because I believe it's that important that we help the church. So you can read it online, or you can click that green button and download a copy yourself, or if you want to order a copy, they'll get you a copy. And what you're going to see in there are 40 days, 40 lessons. Each lesson is basically one lesson per page, just one page. And so each day, this new Christian sits down and goes with one page or watches one video that's only about 5 to 8 minutes long, depending on the subject. And you do that for 40 days. And so the principles that we're talking about, they're divided into 7 principles, are a Christian's responsibility, and there's 13 lessons in there, like what must I do after baptism, and then every Christian's responsibility, the characteristics of a mature Christian, what that looks like, that you need to bear fruit, and that you need to develop the fruit of the Spirit. You need to add to your faith. You need to look for Jesus in all times, and then how to function within the body. Does that not sound like very important information for a new Christian? And that's why we wanted to do this. And then once we understand and talk about their personal responsibility, then we get into the Bible and how important the Bible is to their faith, and that you have to base everything on it. And I give a lot of information there, those lessons you see there. Then you go into the third principle, that there is only one true church, and I give lessons about that. Stuff you've heard me preach. And then about there's only one head of the church, and then there are commands for worship, and then that God is sovereign, and then lastly, remain faithful until death. And so with that, I want to show you that in this website, you can go and you can click on that video button, and it has them all broken out into the 7 principles. You just click on them and it just goes one right to the next one. So if it's a new Christian, they wake up in the morning or the evening, whenever they want to watch it, they watch this 5 to 7 minute video. It gives lots of information, Bible verses and stuff to go along with it. Or if they want to, they can listen to it on a podcast. And so they have video, they have audio, and they have bookio. All right, so so that way they have all these options that they want, that they have available. So now, those of you who are watching online, we are going to have to mute the audio on this one and just put it on the audience here. And the reason being is because even though it's free, this is still copyright material. And even though it's my material, it's registered with World Video Bible School. And if YouTube sees us playing a YouTube video about somebody else, then guess what happens? We get a copyright strike. I know, it's weird, isn't it? But that's why we've had to make some of these changes. So if you will now mute the audio, and those watching online, you can go to walkinginthetruth.com and watch the videos yourself. So here is the introductory video. If you'll dim those lights for me there.